welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trek Before. This time, Tapestry. Yeah, we've woven a tapestry over the years, and hopefully you've been there along the way. You know, and if you want to keep helping us build that tapestry, patreon.com/IBD. It costs like 6 cents a day. You can become a Patreon member. Get you more stuff, and not just us, but the mothership IBD. It's All Been Done Radio Hour. Also lots of fun. And another tapestry. We're on Facebook. It's All Been Trek Before there. This intro is a tapestry at this point. Tapestry. It's All Been Trek.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
And Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome live and in person with our new mic setup. I think this is the first Trek we've recorded on these mics.
Perhaps.
Maybe did one before?
Did we do one?
Yeah,
okay. So, better than it used to be on the old Zoom mic. But we're here to talk Tapestry, a.k.a. It's a Wonderful Trek. First impressions.
Well, my line for later was, it's a wonderful slap. But, that's...
Oh, slap.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was something that I hadn't seen before, but by the end, I think I remembered, like, the big climax of the episode, which I'm not going to get into just yet. But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did too. It started off, I was not expecting to, and for about the first 7-8 minutes, I was like, what are we going with here? And then, actually, with the slap, I was like, okay, now I'm intrigued. And then I thought, I was like, okay, this is... Yeah, it was a good departure episode, and Q made me laugh many, many, many times this episode, so for a little while he was still my annoying, but he ended up not being, because, I laughed. There were other people that made me laugh, other things that made me laugh in this episode, but Q, the Q, whatever that character was, and we'll get into that, made me laugh a lot too. So it was a fun episode. It was also... I thought it was a fun episode. It was a fun alternate universe episode. It was a fun... You know, just maybe fun's not the right word, but it was good in the sense of Q keeps asking, well, what are some things you regret? Let's get into that. And it's like, it's your life flashing before your eyes. It's a clip show. It's a lot of things, and in total, I enjoyed it a lot.
It was a clip show, but not of clips we'd seen before.
Yeah.
Thankfully. Thankfully. It's not Shades of Grey.
No. No. Thank God.
No, yeah.
It would be slaps of gray or slap.
I liked it. I don't know that I'd put it as like the best Trek episode of all time. I like the Inner Light a lot more, for sure. But I liked it.
I kept doing that comparison myself as I watched. Not comparison with the best Trek episodes, but Inner Light is a different concept altogether.
Oh, yeah.
Much more thorough kind of thing than this was. But
the Inner Light, well, I guess both are about the life I could have had. This one ends up with a different solution, and we'll get into that too. Or not different. Well, yeah, it does arrive at in both instances. They're part of the Picard we know. But the Inner Light's
I think it's a very different type of examination.
I'd rather watch this episode again, which is a different thing. Rewatchability is a different.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would not say that, but yeah, I liked it though. We start out with very busy sickbay. Like, they drop us right in the middle of an intense scene, which I appreciated. Yeah. Dr. Crusher says, Dr. Salar can use that other room, I'm going to be in here. Which, I'm like, oh, nice call out for Dr. Salar, who we never see again, but every once in a while they mention her. Too bad. Then we see Picard, and they didn't even, like, rip his shirt like Kirk style. It looks like somebody just dropped a stain on his shirt.
Right.
Like a puddle of something on his shirt. It wasn't well done. I mean, that's, I guess, my one of two fashion notes.
Yeah, fashion. I literally wrote down that Beverly's putting on her blue lab coat over her blue uniform. Blue on blue on blue.
Well, if you get blood on the blue, you can take it off and you're still blue. You're still blue. She's blue, ba-ba-dee-da-da-da-da-dee.
I also appreciate that they started in the middle. I had two improv notes, actually, at the start. The fact that they start in the middle, which is what you want to do with any scene, any improv scene, or any scene, period, but especially an improv scene. And then I also thought when they beamed them aboard, everyone was frozen in place, which is, there's a lot of different improv games that are that way, but one of my favorites is Slideshow, where everyone assumes a pose, and the person has to describe what's going on there within and they look like that's what they did. They froze, and it's like, okay, so your captain got shot with this grenade or whatever they called it, and so. Well,
yeah, they had the security officers still kneeling down. And at one point in the phasers, the whatever you sit with, it was my first note was, because Beverly was describing the damage, is she has what weapon did this? And I put, he was hit by the spleen vendor.
Would this have been a more effective episode had it been the second part of a two-parter, and we see the conference and end with Picard getting shot? And then, of course, you'd have to have time to tack on the end of the conference plot at the end.
I guess that would have been a good alternate episode, too.
I'm sorry, well, the conference? Wait.
So they were like at a conference or something where he got shot? Would have been interesting to go through a whole adventure and end with him getting shot and then come back the next week and do this story. Would that have been more effective, or did it work better this way? For network television at the time, I'm sure they preferred it this way.
Right.
But I'm saying from an audience standpoint, I don't know, that might have been a very interesting cliffhanger.
I don't know.
And they did a lot of two-parters this season, so...
Would we have bought it, though? I mean, I think cliffhangers anymore, especially in this era and for that type of show, I think they've burned us too many times as far as plot armor. You know, I don't think I would believe that it was actually in peril in that sense.
Even if it were a season finale, we'd be like, yeah, we already saw the Locutus. He's not going to be dead this time.
Well, I think that's the thing right off the bat was like, we know he's not dying.
Right.
But
at this point, I mean, when we talked about when the Best of Both Worlds aired, there was definitely some murmurings that he might not come back for another season. But at this point in the series, they're already talking about Endgame and moving to the movies. You know Sir Patrick Stewart's not exiting.
So in that sense, maybe it is good to start it off with just, okay, here's the stake that they've established. We know that it's not going to... In other words, what is the pathway to him coming back? Let's see what it's going to be, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I think the argument for it is that other stuff's just not necessary. And had they done that other stuff, would we be talking about how it's not necessary, that this is the real story and that other stuff?
Possibly.
Know? So I'm not saying we need it. I was just posing it as a question.
Right.
Well,
I guess if there was something especially significant about the conference itself or some other thing that they did leading up to that, that would be fine. But
well, I guess my alternate episode is that there was actually a mystery whose answer lied in his past. And that would make sense as, you know, instead of just him learning his own personal lesson. If they tied it in that way, I guess a two-parter would have been cool. But yeah, it's fine. And I think Keith's the one who said your alternate episode would have been just leave him as a lieutenant from here on forward.
Yeah.
I had another one too, but we'll get to that.
Which would have been interesting.
That's much less...
okay.
Or, I mean, I think that the idea that you just mentioned would be better than the one I wrote.
So we're all amused, right, that Picard's dead, but Q is God?
Yes.
And he's shaking his hands.
Yeah, I guess to the end, jumping to the end of the question, or the end of the episode. This was all just in his head, right?
No, I don't think so.
I do. I don't
You
think
do?
Q was there. I think Q was his selected person in his brain.
I mean, it would make sense, but I think it was Q toying with him again. I think he genuinely would have died there had Q not intervened. And Q chose this moment to kind of mess with him and make him take stake of himself. Because remember, Q is judging humanity based on Picard and the crew. And this is a chance for him to judge humanity and see something. And I think he's kind of become fond of Picard at this point. And it kind of ruins his test if Picard just dies before the test is over. So
Interesting.
I will live in my alternate universe.
I don't think it's clear either way.
Right. Yeah, because I think that's also why Q's funnier, is that it's all in Jean-Luc's head. So,
I mean, Q shaking his hand and just going, "You're dead."
Well, that was hilarious.
That was great.
Yeah.
Of course, they held the handshake all through the opening credits. For 3 minutes, they just stood there, frozen in the handshake.
I mean, we all laughed. I know Keith and I laughed when he said the line, "You're dead." And then the long stinger.
Yeah. And they're still holding hands. And then we go to a 3-minute theme song, they come back, they're still holding hands.
My note there for Jimmy calling the cold open was, of course, yes, it's cold, because he had a bad cloud side manner.
That was another one of my fashion notes. It's just fashion. I did like Q's outfit in the afterlife.
Was it just Cybox robe?
Yeah, but it was lit up a way. It looked like the Kryptonians in Superman the movie.
Ah, yes.
Very, very much like that.
Do you think, it was very clear for me from the second we saw Q that it was Q. Do you think that's the HD transfer and the old...
Perhaps.
The old visual would have been...
Maybe
because
right.
for Picard, it was not until he stepped 4 that Picard recognized him.
Right.
Which begs the question, who was doing the HD transfer that thought it was a good idea to make Q sharper at this point? This is a time where you don't make it sharper. You let it remain the mystery.
I really don't remember, obviously, and I don't know
We
if
could
there's
go
any
get
way
a
to know.
VHS. Go get a VHS copy of the episode and see what it looks like.
It could be because, I don't know, I think we might have known anyway if we were longtime watchers of the show at that point, which we probably would have been, or if we've been watching them in succession as we are now, we probably, obviously, the hair and the outline go, this has to be what's going to happen.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
I'm sure the preview the week before was like, come back, Q's back on the next iteration.
Yeah.
And Picard's dead. Picard says the universe was not so badly designed that Q is God. I enjoyed that line. Like, that is just classic.
Yeah, that made me laugh too.
Yeah, I don't know, this might be a good time to get into that then, because I was thinking about this for a bit. Because we were sort of talking about this a few episodes back when Q was on DS9, and why did that work differently than TNG? And I mentioned the point that you needed the foils of the TNG world of people being much more serious and stiff to play off of them. And in this, I think this worked even better because it wasn't about him being adversarial necessarily. This was him getting to do what he was supposed to do anyway. And Picard being in a situation where he wasn't in control enough to fight back in that sense. He wasn't like trying to wrestle control of the ship with him or anything like that. This was just them bantering, having a discussion of, it really was. It was boiled down to the match of wits. Let's see what's going on. Let's play along and go with it, rather than them being the ship is in peril.
And I guess that's another reason in my.
I was just gonna say that supports your argument.
Yeah,
if he's acting on a character, it's not Q.
Yeah, in my mind, he's Picard's conscience. He's Picard's. He's what. I don't know who would be the Q in my brain if I had to...
Chloe. Steven's cat.
That's a good call, actually.
I mean, she's sending you to hell no matter what you say. Because she's a cat.
And she's seen a lot. She's seen a lot of transgressions, so... Yeah, like, what about this time? Oh, crap, you were there? Yep. Yeah. But, so, yeah, that you guys picked up what I was dropping. So, yep.
I don't know. I'm somewhere in between that, I guess. I feel like I could spin it far enough to support the idea that it really was Q, because...
Yeah.
I think that...
He was saying.
I assumed it was, but Steven's making a really good argument.
I think that it makes me like the episode more, that there's some ambiguity there. And I think that's what that last scene was for, because I'm like, wait a minute, I thought we were done, because they showed the Enterprise rolling on. I'm like, are we going to roll credits? Nope, we have one more scene. Okay, it's to discuss whether... Was it all a dream?
I would rather not have the ambiguity. I'd rather know if he was real or not. But I think you've made that very good.
I feel comfortable in that it was all in Picard's head.
I think either way the story really works, though, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't change its effectiveness.
Yeah, and as you guys know, I'm not a Q lover, but I ended up loving him in this episode. It had, as the foil, because again, I think when Q succeeds, I'm laughing. When Q doesn't succeed, I'm just like, oh, here's another omnipotent being or whatever. But here, it served the episode, and it was very funny.
That affects it for me, unfortunately. I think the episode becomes less effective if it were just a dream. If this were just Picard working through this somehow magically in his head. Or not even magically, you know what I'm saying? Him processing things in that way. It didn't feel like this was something that he could have directed himself.
Well, so, I mean, now we're deep down the rabbit hole, but I guess we all don't deal... Well, I think everyone looks back on stuff as like, well, if I'd done this or that.
Right.
I guess this is a little more concrete in that, in theory, he got to go... I don't know. Some people, I think, sometimes you think you're done with the past, but the past ain't done with you, but that's a thing, too. But I feel like that's him trying to get to closure with these past things he'd done. And have I done these? When he's like, these are all the people you killed. And it's like, yeah, he has killed all these people, and he's wrestling that
killed or
yeah,
that's a more gray area.
And I think I guess the entry point into it also is, it's definitely, I wrote down Jean-Luc Picard, this is your life, because it's like, and it's also your life flashed before your eyes. Which is why I'm glad we jumped to, we're going to relive this particular moment.
Yeah.
I thought that made it more interesting rather than, here's all the times you messed up in your life.
Right.
It was very relevant to the moment with the heart and everything.
Yes.
As well as, this is the episode people cite when they argue that Picard was the wild child rebel Rebel as a youngster, because we never see that in the other way.
Right.
Whereas Kirk was the responsible one, unless you believe the 2009 Star Trek.
We talked about this a little bit off mic, but what I ended up landing on was, and I went back and looked it up to make sure I was right. The movie Peggy Sue Got Married, in that she goes, the instigating incident is a little different than the inciting incident. She goes back to her 25th. She's having trouble in her current life with her husband and all that. And so she goes back to her 25th reunion, and she gets crowned the homecoming queen again, and then faints. And then the rest of the movie is her, she's in the hospital. It's her essentially going back to 1960, going back to when she graduated, and sorting that stuff out. And this was very much like that. Like he essentially went back to just after his graduation, and dealing with, well, should I have done this and should I have done that? And she comes to the same conclusion as Picard, which is, I'm glad I made that choice to be with this person and the life I've had so far. And now what do I do with it going forward? So, again, I have no proof that that's where they lifted it from, but it's very, very similar. And I don't see that as a complaint. I love Peggy Sue Got Married.
I guess it would be more similar than It's a Wonderful Life, which is what you would...
It still had echoes of that, for sure. Because
you would jump right to, obviously...
Q was Clarence.
Right.
Well, we didn't really explore what the Enterprise was like without Picard being captain.
Right.
Which would be it more, This is It's a Wonderful Life.
I'm glad that they didn't retread that sort of thing. The idea of... And I think that's... I hadn't even noticed that before, hadn't made that connection, but Q actually said something very similar, kind of mockingly at the beginning. You're not that important. Come on, don't do that. We're going to do whatever we're going to do. I promise you this isn't going to be that kind of... He wasn't saying this, but this isn't going to be that kind of episode where it's like, oh my god, the Enterprise is doomed because you weren't the captain or whatever. This is about you examining your life so we can figure some other things out.
I think that was the writers. This was written by Ronald D. Moore. I think that was Ronald D. Moore going, those time travel stories where one little thing screws everything up, that's stupid. Most people don't affect much, even if you're the captain of the Enterprise. And I do appreciate that perspective because I do think sometimes people get a little full of themselves in writing the other type of story. And to be like, yeah, it's not that different for most people that you didn't do what you did.
Right.
Ego. We get Picard's dad, played by Clive Church, who's best known for this. I can't find anything else about him online. This is his only IMDb credit.
Was he cat? Did we see Picard's father before?
No, we saw his brother.
Oh,
who was older than his father here.
That's what I was thinking of.
But they seem similar personalities, yeah. So this guy, I was trying to figure out why they cast him. Was there a story behind it? But I can't find anything. So he's nobody apparently. This is only credit. Only credit.
Wow.
I Google him. He has no internet presence whatsoever. no interview backstory of how he got on the episode. No idea.
All right. Well, I'll allow it in this case. I mean, sometimes I think you're a little harsh on these poor actors. It's like, what? You only had 50 credits. Who the hell are you?
He's only got one credit, Keith. That's just fun.
That's a pretty good one credit to have.
It's a great credit. Yeah. It's only 60 seconds of screen time, but he could probably still make a living doing fan conventions if he wants to.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Iconic.
The dad thing, I don't know if it was strictly necessary for the episode, but also, I guess it just reinforced something we already knew about him, but in a way it was kind of nice to get the reinforcement right before you delve into Picard's story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, well, that's where I was like, is this going to be a whole episode of this? And then, again, when it didn't, then I was like, okay, now I like that better. And again, this goes to me thinking, this is all in Picard's head.
The special edition of this is coming out, and James Callis has been superimposed.
Another reason why breaking down the formula again, why this worked better than what Stephen was probably imagining, is because if it had been a succession of here's the things you did wrong, it would be hearkening back to the Inquisitor type cue of I'm putting you on trial and I'm going to hear your transgressions and defend these things. But
he didn't ask Picard to defend anything. Really.
Right. This wasn't for that. This is him being a counselor for him, actually.
Yeah. And he keeps asking him, well, what are your regrets? And blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, why wouldn't we get into what are your not regrets? What are your, this was awesome. These are your accomplishments. But
not as much interesting an episode.
No. No, it's not.
We see Picard's artificial heart. Q's holding it.
Yeah.
That does not look advanced enough.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
No, it's one of the older ones.
I thought it should have been real small.
We were back at the old uniform.
Yeah, I know.
That's when he would have gotten it.
I think even if they made one today, it would look better.
There are artificial hearts now, right?
They do heart transplants.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's.
I'm pretty sure I've heard of them back in the 80s.
I mean, there's the heart there's like the pacemaker that makes your heart beat.
Yeah, I think ideally you get somebody else's heart, but I think there are some.
Oh,
Wikipedia has
Harry Jarvik,
artificial heart. They're typically in modern day used to bridge the time to heart transplant.
Oh, that makes sense.
okay.
But can be used if a heart transplant is not possible.
Okay.
The first artificial heart was implanted in the 1982, so before this episode. And I'm looking at a picture of the artificial heart, like a real one, and it doesn't look that different from what they showed.
That's what I thought.
Which makes me think, like, they didn't advance it in 300 years, 400 years?
Well, they probably wouldn't bother.
I mean,
it was perfect the first time, so...
TOS, they were still using...
there's a picture of one from 2008.
Matrix printers.
It looks much more advanced than 2008.
Yeah.
If I had to justify it, I would say that the idea would be that they advanced enough in medicine where they didn't need to use artificial hearts. They could repair the tissue or whatever.
Just print you a new heart.
Yeah. Or that too, yeah.
3D printer. They could not even imagine that.
Replicate one?
Yeah.
It also suggests that they got him to the hospital very quickly. Well, I know it's
3D printer is just an early
24th century. Medicine's better.
Do they have replicators in TOS?
Yeah. They made all their food look like cubes, but yes.
But maybe it wouldn't have been advanced enough to do a heart, though. So they weren't like serving up with glasses and whiskey in a replicator.
That's a very good question.
So therefore, once they moved on to replicator technology, they wouldn't need to advance artificial hearts. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the 3D printer is just an early replicator, so...
I mean, TOS are very anti-clone. By TNG, they're, let's replicate everything.
The three Nausicaans appear in the white, and it actually is. It does kind of match the fight scene later. I thought they did a good job matching the choreography. It's all talking about how Picard's undisciplined and arrogant, and Picard's like, I'm more like you, which I thought was a really fun. He's like, well, I wish I had known you then, because it would have been more fun. But the revelation that Picard started the fight, I feel like, now, where I'm sitting, it doesn't seem surprising, but I feel like in the moment, you'd be really surprised to learn that your hero, the captain of the ship, started a bar fight. Mm-hmm. Because characters weren't that complex back then. Like, the hero character was always a hero. Right? For the most part?
Yeah.
True-ish. Yeah, I can't think of a good example right now, but you keep touching on something I want to get to eventually.
Maybe I'm jumping ahead to that, too. I thought that, as often with Q, it's a false construct of like, well, the only thing you can do is change it so that you don't get in this fight and get stabbed in the heart. Otherwise, you're going to die. It's like, okay, but you're this special being. Couldn't you change the rules?
No, he could. Those were his rules.
Yeah.
Those were like the universe's rules.
So, but I guess it makes sense, even with my theory, that Picard would be like, oh, here's the dumb way Q would set this up so that I couldn't do this. But...
Well, I did like that Q removed the stakes, though. He's like, fine, if you're going to complain, like, whatever happens, I won't mess up the universe. It'll be fine. I'll make sure it's...
That was interesting, too.
Let's go back to the whole...
The writer saying, I'm not going to deal with this.
Right. But I didn't like that Picard's whole thing was like, well, I'm just going to do whatever I can to stop the fight. And we know I'm a Kirk guy. Kirk would have found a way to win the fight.
Yes, because the impossible situation.
Yes, the foreknowledge of what would happen could prevent you being stabbed in the sense of I'm not going to make the same moves, or I'm going to wear a bulletproof vest or something.
Yeah. If this were a Kirk episode, he'd go make friends with Spock earlier and get him to come help him, and they're pitch them.
Yeah.
Or something like that, or set up like Home Alone paint cans, or
or Kirk just wouldn't have showed up.
Well,
he'd have been with Penny and Colleen A.
I liked when Picard's like, well, so I won't die if I don't get stabbed? And he was like, of course you'll die. It's just going to be a later time.
That was hilarious.
Great line.
That was really, so many good little lines. And then Q being like, the alternative, we'll spend eternity together. And Picard's like, yeah, I'm out. But there's lots of fanfic online. Their alternate episode where Picard realizes he loves Q and they do spend all their time together. The character of Penny, when we see, because, Picard's got the double day, 2 dates in 1 day. Penny Marok, played by Rende Ray Norman, who was just credited as Ray Norman. Yep. She's best known for The Dentist 2, this role, Who Killed the Baby Jesus. She's got 31 credits.
She was in the, I just had it here.
She died in 2020.
2020 just died. She was in a Seinfeld episode.
Huh.
But I can't track down... She was played Mrs. Bain, the soulmate. So it's the episode where by then George is running the board of his dead fiance.
Susan's board.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
man.
I think she's on. I think this actress is on the board.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's just so she was 27, I guess, when this aired or around then, and I thought she looked older because I was like,
agree.
The age difference looked off.
I agree,
but I guess in my mind I'm like, well, they don't want to put Patrick Stewart with a 21-year-old.
I wrote that.
So,
I thought that's what they were doing there, but what?
But 27, that's an achievable age.
No, I'm sorry.
And at that
she was
point-
27 there.
Yeah, she looked in her 30s.
That kind of that makes you think of like when they showed the Cheers cast that meme of like these guys were all in their 30s back then.
No, it's like, oh my god,
whatever it is. But and so at that point I'm like, okay, it makes sense. Make her look a little older because we've got Patrick Stewart here.
Mm-hmm.
But then later, Marta's 18.
Was she really?
Yeah, I had
actress.
I did a cartoon like
J.C. Brandy?
Squeaky. When I saw that, or maybe I'm out of math. Maybe she's 28.
1975. This was 93.
Yeah.
So 18. Yeah, she did not look 18.
No.
I thought she in the 20s.
Yeah.
She's best known for Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, and then this role, What Lies Beneath, and Legally Blonde. She's credited on the soundtrack. So she's actually, looks like she's in a band or something.
She's 1 year younger than me, and I could have been on track then, I guess.
She looked very familiar.
That's funny.
She writes music as under the name Justine Brandy. But yeah, she's only got about 30 credits too.
Yeah, I could have sworn I'd seen her in a lot of other things, but
she really hasn't been.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I liked her a lot.
Before you zoom past that whole 27 thing, it's fun. I'm more convinced now that I think we started aging slower in certain ways, but like maturing faster and aging slower.
We're living longer until the last couple
slower.
years.
No, I mean physically maturing faster in certain ways. Like younger people look older than they used to, in the same time.
Right.
Getting older, slower, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Science would support that because, and I haven't checked the stats lately, and I probably won't, but I know one of the biggest changes between 1900 and 2000 was women's periods menstruation started a lot earlier, a lot younger.
That has
like 3 years younger.
With chemicals in the water or whatever.
So
interesting. All right.
And we have better cameras. Maybe that's why we all look so good.
But no, they could have also been making her look older than. I can't imagine that she's supposed to be playing 27.
I think her hair. Oh, we're talking about Penny.
Yeah, going back to Penny.
Yes, I agree.
I thought she was trying to. I think the 27. Now, when I see she's 27, I'm like, okay, 21-year-old went for a 27-year-old in the bar. That all makes sense character-wise to me. Whereas I just thought she looked older, and I didn't think they wanted to put Patrick Stewart as such a young girl. But clearly, I was wrong about that. So
that gets to one of my questions.
I'm sorry. So are you saying that you think that the character was supposed to be 27 as well?
I'd say it doesn't matter, but I would not find it odd if the character was 27.
I'm just for the purpose of. I don't think that's what they were going for. I mean, that's.
I thought she was supposed to be in her 30s.
Yeah, 30s or 40s.
This probably. Is the Maggie May showing him the ropes.
Right. That's what I thought she looked like.
Yeah,
because of the line too, and that whole because she really was feeling that insecurity there was like I don't know, your pity and just
and through the glass,
which was hilarious. But it gets to one of my alternate episodes. The question being, should we have had a different younger actor playing Picard?
I mean, they could have, because we saw Marcus Nash play Picard. He doesn't have a ton of credits. He's actually more of a writer, but he's only got 5 writing credits and 3 acting credits. Played young Jean-Luc Picard. I liked having Patrick Stewart there.
I did too.
I think today they would have let a younger actor play it.
I thought it, and actually my favorite part of the whole thing of him playing his younger self was really, I guess it wasn't his younger self, but the slight change, it's such a slight change when he's not Captain Picard. When he comes back and he's talking to Riker and Troy about...
I love that.
It was just such a slight change, because those two didn't change who they were, really, because they didn't have to. But he did. It wasn't a huge change, like, oh, I'm Mr. Meek now. It was just such a slight change. It was really well done.
Patrick Stewart's very
it's because he could feel that dynamic shift, and he knew that he couldn't just... But they kind of... They still... The way they were playing off of him, too, I think it kind of forced him into that little... Oh my... Well, I don't want to get there too soon, but... Wait, the whole younger actor thing. I think if they could have... while he was in the scenes with the people, he's a younger person, if he stops to talk to Q, they could just do a little shift.
Right.
He's Picard, and just that kind of...
Yeah. There's a number of ways they could have done it, but I understand why they just kept Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, but that would be one of my options.
They brought in the game of Dom Jot, that I think we'll see in Star Trek again. I said it looks like a cross between billiards and pinball, and that's exactly what they're saying online. I, as Keith pointed out, nobody's actually built one that I can find, which is disappointing. Somebody needs to have a Dom
really
Jot
should
table.
do something like that. I mean, I'm surprised nobody had.
If I win the lottery, I'll pay for somebody to build me one.
I was disappointed when they said, well, we're going to do to them what they did to us. And they said, you mean cheat? Yeah. And maybe the whole idea is, well, Picard's not Kirk, but I really want them to say, no, it's going to change the rules.
It was a cool-looking game, though. It looked like fun.
Yeah.
Another great line about Q saying, the story gets you right here.
That was very funny.
God.
That was very funny.
So many things. And I actually wrote down the penny for your thoughts thing because of the way that she was being sort of inquisitive. And it was like, if only she said that.
Again, yeah.
Yeah, and then I wrote it down right before, or like minutes before Q actually said it. And
I usually found on that, but I begrudgingly laughed very hard at that.
John Luke lectures Corey. We haven't talked about Corey yet. Ensign Cortan Corey Zweller, played by Ned Vaughn, who's best known for The Hunt for Red October, Life, Apollo 13, and Courage Under Fire. He has 84 credits.
this fits in with the fashion things. One of my earlier thoughts, because I hadn't really noticed it as much. So they're going back to the TOS movie uniforms, essentially.
Yeah.
The flaps. And so
because apparently they wore those for 75 years, even though they changed the uniforms every 5 years after that.
Yeah.
No, that wouldn't have been like an overlapping year, huh?
Yeah, but anytime we even see like the 10 years ago, before Next Gen, they're wearing that uniform. And because they changed uniforms a lot in the early days and a lot during Next Gen era, but for 75 years in between, they just wore those uniforms.
And I love seeing them, and they look good. But.
Well,
They do, and I was noticing how all the buttons, all the snaps around the whole flap, and then also the thing twisted.
And I like that he and Marta both at the bar, I think it was at the bar, they both had it unflapped.
Right,
They all were just like, it's not even worth. Even when, the Corey put his up, he didn't bother to snap it.
Yeah.
He just...
Right, well, as I was going to say, it seemed as if they were showing us the sort of purpose, like they were off duty if they had them open.
Right.
And it looked like Corey was putting his on because he was about to go do something official.
But they just fastened it. He didn't do all the snaps, so it was kind of hanging loose and looking sloppy.
Okay, but it looked like that was Velcro or something.
No, if you look, they were like, you could see in the HD all the little snaps.
Nice.
Yeah.
But anyway, was that ever established? The idea that that's the purpose it serves of sort of like...
I mean, when Kirk goes to sickbay to hold the dying kid, it flips
clothes,
open.
Or, they're kind of like a something. Like it's like the cabbie putting on like the in service.
Oh, right.
Kind of, I don't know.
Going back to the fight, I'm bouncing around, I know, but really, I mean, the other two went out real easy.
Yeah.
Other two Nausicaans or the other two?
His two friends are the reason he died.
Because Marta and Corey just quite off. Yeah.
Come on. If they pull their weight, he doesn't get stabbed.
I'll give him credit for putting Marta in the fight, though, because I assume she was just going to stand back and watch.
Yeah. I agree.
They got their licks in, I would say. I mean, I think one of my notes was I loved that they all seem to know Trek Fu.
That's what they teach them at the academy, and they all graduated.
It's just kind of... There is that style, and that's going to lead into Dax next episode too. By the way,
everybody was Trek Fu fighting.
Yeah, or I almost call it Kirk Fu. It's hard to say, but it seems pretty. It seems pretty standard across the series for all the characters.
Absolutely.
So axe handles and the.
Is the bar, which, first of all, they're having breakfast at the bar in one scene, too.
Right.
Like, why? So I feel like that's got to be a set thing. We're only going to give you one set, and it looks like it might have been Quark's bar redressed. Am I wrong there?
Oh, it might have been.
Or 10 Forward.
It's one of those bars that opens at 6 a.m. and closes at...
Could have also been 10 Forward really redressed. But it was definitely a redressed set, I think.
Well, I think it depends on where they were stationed exactly. I mean, were they at an academy? So that it wasn't like an academy or something?
No, they mentioned what planet they were on.
Moved out.
Okay. Yeah, so I think if they're stationed someplace, you have like a local establishment where that's all you have.
But it did not seem like a place for breakfast. The dark lighting and everything. Another restaurant?
No, but they probably don't have... That's my point. It's probably some little outpost
One, I
or
couldn't
something.
tell what they were having, but why? I mean, I know she starts crying. Great crier, J.C. Brandy. But...
John's better.
Why...
You'll like that when you hear it again at some point.
Why did that necessarily ruin the relationship? that they slept together.
Well, I think because they're shipping off, and so it changes their dynamic, but they're not going to have time to work through it.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed a little thin.
Yeah, it seemed a little quick.
Forced.
Right.
For the purpose of that, I think that there would have been better ways to arrive. I mean, they were already working up to that kind of... She was getting pretty indignant pretty quickly about a lot of things. Like, she was just, oh my god, I'm feeling things for you. Oh, but you're still a womanizer. That kind of just jumping back and forth those things, and that could have alienated
She saw that little bit of responsibility, and she's like, I'm going to go for it. And then she's like, oh, but that's not who he is. That's
Oh, he's got flowers. I'm out of here. That kind of...
Yeah. For John Luck Pickard?
Yeah, Pickard.
That's how we should always pronounce his name now.
And maybe that goes back to me maybe taking a step back and realizing they're supposed to be very young people and not.
Yes. I think a lot of that was internal conflict. I mean, I think if you dug in there...
Right.
Yeah. I mean, on her part, yes, you could get in there and go, she's having all these imaginary conversations and fights and just going through all these things and just sort of like, well, we can't do this. Or
to go to my theory, Picard was like, well, if we... Picard together.
Who's Picard?
It would have ruined the friendship. So it's best we didn't.
Oh, in his head,
yeah.
Yeah, I think Picard at that age, had he known there were feelings for her, would have blown her off. And Picard, in his older age, are like, oh, I shouldn't have blown her off.
Yeah,
because she's responsible. She's more like who I should have been with instead of who I was with.
Well, it was the when Harry met Sally scene, right? Except it doesn't have a happy ending. Except Sally's the one who's like, this was a bad idea. And Harry's like, hey, let's do this.
Well, I mean, also they weren't really moving to other planets right after that scene, too. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
We get John Luke lecturing Corey on setting a higher standard, which, of course, would have been totally out of character. And I feel like his friends didn't show enough that he was acting different, because he clearly was acting way different.
I don't know.
Picard says they were friends for years after this. Now I want to know what happened. Why are they not friends anymore? He was friends with Corey for years.
They might have grown apart or died or something. I mean, there's...
but now
a lot of Picard's friends die.
Yeah.
Now I want to know.
Your friends have a bad habit of dying.
I think for that much time having passed, I don't think it's really that unusual for them.
No. Yeah.
Especially going through a service like that.
The scene with Q in bed and Picard pulling the sheet up over his chest.
Oh my god.
Was great. Again,
that was hilarious.
More fodder. There are going to be so many fanfic episodes about this episode.
That's such a great little touch, him pulling the sheets
I know.
up.
Just the way the reveal was shot was so perfect. I was like surprised and yet not at the same time. You just see the hand kind of caresses his head and they roll over and you can kind of see it coming and it's like...
But as much as the original series was all Kirk Spock shippers online, I think this has got to be Picard Q shippers online, right?
Yeah. I think,
Q in the bar just takes a big bite. Is that like a stalk of bok choy?
It looked like celery. A giant thing of celery.
It seemed like it had a bigger ball on the end. I thought it was bok choy. I don't know, but it still seems ridiculous.
And that was the point and it was great. Just...
So we see if Picard saves himself, he just becomes an assistant astrophysicist, lieutenant junior grade at his age. You know, we talk about those old ensigns and those old lieutenants. This is a perfect example.
Yes.
But I thought it was very interesting how they described, like when he went to Riker and Troy for evaluation, it's not like they said, oh, you've never shown this. They're like, no, that's your problem. You have ambition, but you won't take the chance. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, one of those guys who thinks they should be ahead but isn't doing what's needed to get ahead. But do they deserve, is their system so rigid that they don't allow for different personality types? And that's a problem as well. You know, people that are like, well, let's only promote the go-getters that are social and whatever. Bother me too.
Yeah.
Does it make sense that one, the fight changing, does that make sense that would change his whole life?
Well, they said after that he started to think about living for the moment, living in the moment and take chances and think about his mortality, and I think that does change your outlook. Yeah.
Well, I think what was happening there, as far as it was more of a trajectory thing. He was establishing a pattern of avoiding those types of conflicts and making the right decision, or playing it safe, as they were saying, and maybe that prevented him from, seeming bold enough in their eyes.
Well, now they're saying you need to establish yourself as bold first and then temper it with wisdom. But I appreciated Picard's attitude of, I'd rather die than live like this. Mm-hmm. Like, that to me is a really powerful statement.
Well, I think that's what Q was trying to draw out of him, essentially. Why weren't they showing him oh, these are your accomplishments, or having his positive thing. That wasn't really the point of what he needed to show him, which was that the things that you view as regrets might have actually been your accomplishments. This thing that you did, this moment of bravery in this bar was, looks like something that was really childish and impulsive, but it was something else entirely. And so through this one example, and they were for the purpose of our digesting it, maybe there were other things that he started to process in that way that they just weren't showing us. Here are these other examples of things that were actually heroism, although you thought we were ashamed of the fallout from doing that. But even that, as we were just saying, is something that would propel him to start thinking, tempering with wisdom. There. So it's like I'm seeing these actions were necessary to get here, but they were also necessary to show me the consequences of doing things like that.
Are you talking on if you pull on one thread, then the whole tapestry unravels? I thought that was clever, though. Yeah. And I like that that's the name of the episode. Yes. Like, I like the connection.
It actually is accurately titled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This gets to the question of, is this real or not? Picard, we see early in the episode Picard laughing after he's stabbed. And then later in the episode he laughs after he's stabbed. So that makes me wonder, did he always laugh after he is stabbed? Or was that because of this experience that he always will time travel back in time?
Yes. I wrote that time travel theory. It could have been.
Or if it's all a dream, maybe he didn't laugh originally.
It could. Right. There's that too. Damn. But this isn't about proving one thing or the other. I'm just saying that it's possible that Q always did this. There's always that loop, and he doesn't. Maybe at that moment he still doesn't remember. Maybe even after he loses consciousness.
Yeah.
From having done that, and they put the heart transplant. Maybe he forgot the Q thing.
Yeah.
Maybe wrote off his dream that he forgot, and then now he's coming back full circle.
Because after a trauma, your memory's gonna be hazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you, Keith. Of course, that messes with the dream theory, but yeah. But then when he wakes up at the table laughing, it's like, I had a dream, and you were there, and you were there, and you were there, Worf and Riker and Troy, which is fun. And I wrote down, was this a dream or was it a Q trick? Which Picard basically asks straight out.
Right.
And then they don't answer. But I really loved that the ending was him telling Riker a story about his young days.
Yeah, that was...
Picard, similar to Patrick Stewart, you can tell how standoff he is. Yeah. Even if you think back to, like, the first season, where he and Riker are hanging out in the bar, episode, like, 110010 with Minuet, Picard is still keeping himself in check, even as he's loosening. And in this season, we start to see him loosen with his crew. And I know that's a big theme of the final season is that it will be different. He'll have a different chemistry with the crew in the movies because he's finally let himself open up to them. And it's nice to see the seeds of that planted and that it wasn't just an instant.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, I haven't seen the series finale, but I've read the novelization a million times. I know the final scene of the series deals with that exact dynamic. Okay. And so I always wondered, like, is there a lead up or was it an instant thing? There's definitely a lead up. The only other note I have is Q, German doctor, why? Just the most random thing ever.
That made me laugh.
He's a German doctor. Although it would be kind of fun if he was wearing a Pulaski wig and Pulaski was the CMO.
Oh my god. That would... What? That would have been great.
Or Sealar wig.
He was also the old-fashioned kind with the head reflector thing and just... I think that's kind of like a...
It was funny.
Almost like a Bugs Bunny kind of thing. He probably had a German accent as well.
Yeah.
First of all, I'll start with the makeup. I liked the guy they beat in billiards. I liked his makeup. The first guy. It was very ridgy. It was very, like, super Bajoran. But also kind of Star Wars Cantina. The Nazicans, though, not that impressed. They looked like Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre to me.
In a way, but they also looked like the Predator aliens.
Yeah.
That similar kind of mouth, but like... so like three things.
I think if their prosthetic, whatever, their face had been more on their face. It felt like it was...
I would love to see Discovery do a Nausicaan and see what they're supposed to look like.
Yeah. Also sort of like an arse face, too. I don't know if you remember that character from Preacher.
No.
I just to get into the whole, like, changing the timeline or that kind of thing. Like, if you go back and you just need to avoid getting killed, and, I know... I can't pick out a specific Twilight Zone episode, but I know there have been ones where it's like, oh, I'm going to do this differently, and they always end up dying anyway. The way he was stabbed, Scott Pilgrim, when he gets stabbed and killed by the G-Man
So Scott Pilgrim ripped off Star Trek?
Yes. It did an homage, because, and I pointed out to Keith also that...
What did you confirm that they literally were trying to do that? Or?
I did, but the other interesting thing to me is that in the movie, Scott Pilgrim gets stabbed, but he had gotten an extra life earlier, and that's what Picard gets here. He gets an extra life.
Love
so I feel like there is, if it's not on purpose, it's still there for me.
Yeah.
My last reference is, at some point, Picard says, "Q, I'm done. Get me out of here," or whatever. And, well, now that I say it that way, I sound like George Jetson. "Jane, stop this crazy thing." But actually what it made me think of was, if you guys have seen Camelot the musical, there's a point where Richard Harris, as King Arthur, is calling for Merlin to, "Merlin, take me back." He wants to go back to to where he was, and I thought it was very reminiscent. And, as I've mentioned on here before, Patrick Stewart was in Excalibur. So... It all connects.
I was looking up Nazikins, and I believe this is the first time we've seen them. We will see them in more next-gen DS9, Voyager. Nice. They even have appeared in Lower Decks already. And in Star Trek Enterprise as well. But I don't feel like... I feel like every time they show up, it's brief appearances. Yeah. Even if you read the Memory Alpha, there's not a lot about their culture. We're not going to delve in like a Romulans or Ferengi. But, yeah, we'll certainly see Nazikins again.
Okay, so...
ripping off Star Trek and Star Trek ripping off things. No, alluding.
Should that have been the name of this podcast?
It's all been alluded before? Something? All right. So I mentioned the off-duty flaps, but I thought of that during the scene where, Picard sat in the bed with
Marta.
Yeah, Marta, and still had his flap up. So it's like,
because he wasn't relaxing with her.
He's still business. We just talking to her about things. One of the bar scenes, God, it might have been when the Nausicaans were coming in or something like that. Right before commercial, you had the long stinger, and he had Picard kind of look off like this, and I just put that he was jimming to the wrong camera, and it was like, wait, were they supposed to have Q? Was he looking at Q, and they just didn't pan over to him? But it was just sort of like that kind of. You could kind of see making the expression. It's just like, nope. The Trek Foo thing. And I was like, we need a fighting game, like a video, one of those Street Fighter games with Trek. I mean, even if we have so yeah, if somebody's mentioning who is influential enough to do these things, maybe you do mind these things. For my ideas, of course. And they are making the multiverse thing happen in the MCU, but whatever. Maybe they're listening to me. Getting off track.
They have to be on the Gamesters of Triskelion platform.
But I mean, there's all kinds of things you could do with that. If you want to, like a Star Trek specific one, certainly we could have them all sort of have the same basic kind of Trek food things, but also little special moves and different platforms like that. But if you're doing probably to get more bang out of it eventually is having the cross promotional, just all the different sci-fi and or fantasy dream matchups and just those different fighting styles. You would have like maybe Kirk, Riker, and Picard all having like the same sort of like Ken and Ryu fighting the sort of same moves of the axe handles and so on. But somebody's got to do that eventually. I'm surprised they haven't. It's probably all about getting rights. So getting back to the idea of the effect that this fight had, or the not having artificial heart, and him getting to this point. One of the places where it sort of falls apart, or really where they probably didn't want to get it too complex. So he's on the Enterprise now. He's in this uniform. He still obviously retains the memory of all the things that he would have done in his other timeline, unless that were erased at some point through this, and. If the theory is he's going to be miserable doing this, he would still have to have remembered the other life for that to be contrasting. He would still have the opportunity to prove himself from that point. Yeah, we saw him go up because he knows he went to Riker and Troy in the bar, and he's like, he knows he can still. He's showing that kind of initiative right there with that conversation. In fact, and being persistent enough when. You can even see Riker starting to be swayed a little bit, at least to give him some sort of consideration to that point, saying, you know what, I'm going to try to help you in some way now. He could have changed it, but at the same time, maybe he's too old by then, because we don't really see... have they shown us like junior grade officers who are that age usually on the ship?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we always comment on it because it seems weird.
Right.
Yeah.
So even like Barclay or something like that. I mean, what's his rank at this point? I mean,
Lieutenant.
Yeah.
And will be for every time we see him.
Now I'm thinking that they should have one of the scenes where he went forward with his new personality, where because he didn't get stabbed, is within the world of the Inner Light, and he's like, you know what? I'm fine with this. I don't even want to get back to the Enterprise. Then
just picks up a flute.
Yeah, roll credits. That's another one of my alternate episodes.
So I was also thinking, just in relation to my own life, as far as having a lot of revelations this year about things that I could have done differently, because that's a long story.
Like you start bar fights with Nausicaa. I know.
Well, I mean, I, in a sense, have been given a chance to do things differently this year. And is it too late? Because I'm a lot older than I would.
No, it's not. I'm just teasing.
I know. In some ways, it is. It is the idea that he would have damaged too many things at that point, or rather, would his record have been too firmly established for him to even make that impression, even though he has the ability to do it with his old memories? Would people even really believe that he was capable of that change if he kept demonstrating it? So some of those things might be locked in too far. So that would be a very depressing way to go through it, I suppose. What else? The alternate episode of mine would be that they actually just go right into a flashback of this anecdote that Picard is telling Riker. It's like, wait, there's another half hour? What's going on?
That's the next week's episode. That's the third part.
My other alternate episode is just that this whole episode's an alternate episode. It's an alternate universe episode of like, this is what could have happened, which I think is great.
Yeah.
I love it.
And the last thing is too long to get into, but it ties back to some things we used to talk about, really in general, about Star Trek representing American ideals in certain ways and showing them. And we were talking about where no man has gone before, where no one's gone before. From the perspective, we haven't really gotten there.
Right.
They're just, it only counts because we're from this perspective of going there ourselves, like this whole manifest destiny thing.
Well, if you're a Medusan, you're not a man, you're a Medusan. We're a man.
Yeah, so it doesn't count because, well, all right, so all right, I guess if they're saying it in that way.
But still, we didn't discover it. But
Yeah, let's get to the rankings. Who are you annoyed with this week?
I started with our boy Q, but he made me laugh so hard, I loved him. The Nausicans. Yeah.
Oh.
That's right.
I'm going with Corey.
I was going with Corey, too.
That's a good choice, too.
That's just, that kind of... you're not my friend. You're making me do what? Yeah.
And then he goes.
That's the type of guy Picard used to hang out with. So.
Yeah. What? You're not helping me sabotage his table and get us in trouble?
I think it's telling that his friend group is only 3 people because he seems like a jerk. I mean, I'm sure for budget and simplicity, but honestly. This is their last night hanging out. There's only 3 of them. It's because nobody else wants to be around them. Corey and Jean-Luc are insufferable.
The gardener at the Starfleet Academy is like,
Boothby?
I don't want to. Nope. I guess they were on another place.
Yeah, still.
The point is,
So you're going with Corey as well.
Yeah.
Who are we having a drink with?
Not Penny.
Not her boat?
It's like one of those boat drinks, like a...
That's not Penny's boat.
Marta. That's right.
I knew you'd pick her. I'm picking Picard. I want to, whatever story he was about to tell Riker, I want to join him and listen.
Actually, I'm afraid it would be Penny at this point, so...
I don't want to...
Not that's like you know what I'm saying, not regrettable, but just...
I don't want to hear about Picard's dreams over and over, so I don't want to have a drink with him.
No, but Penny deserved better than that.
It's not his dreams. I want to hear about his missions. Okay, let's get to the rankings. Should we start at the top?
I liked it a lot.
I think so.
Okay, top right now is Chain of Command Part 2. Under for me.
No, I guess it has to go under that.
Yeah.
Begrudgingly, honestly.
I know I like that episode enough that it obviously got to number 1, but
right.
Yeah, I probably would have gone above, but
yeah. You liked it that much?
I think I did.
Okay.
But
I'm torn on it, really.
Underneath that is Chain of Command Part 1. Part 2 stands out more to me than Part 1, so it's hard to tell. I will say underneath the 2 Chains of Command, there's Relics, if you want to use that as a reference point. Does it deserve to be above or below Relics?
Above.
Yeah, I'll give you above Relics.
Similar category.
I'll give you above Relics. So, Chain of Command Part 1 is the question. I'm cool with going above part 1, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's a good representation.
Let's split up Chain of Command.
Yeah. You're not supposed to do that.
Oh!
Yes, thank you.
Nah, it was necessary because it just... Yeah, Chain of Command Part 2 was just so darn good. I was directed by Les Landau. Not that it matters, because just one of our regulars. It's not like we're going to talk about him. We kind
of are, technically.
Well, we talk about the directors the first time they directed, and after that, it's just like, it's Les Landau for the 30th time. I'm not going over his business.
Who wrote this one?
Was Ron D.
Moore? Okay,
yeah. So, next week, we're going back to Deep Space Nine for an episode called Dax, where Jadzia Dax is accused of a murder that her previous host Curzon supposedly committed.
I thought it was going to be about Bashir.
He wishes. Until then, live long.
By not dying, and prosper.
With an artificial heart, I guess. Or a replicated one.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?